Reese bounces back with a huge week in the WNBA. We discuss it next on Beyond the Locker Room. Angel Reese had quite the week. We'll see if she ends up being Eastern Conference Player of the Week. But I mean, based on the numbers and the height she hit this week, I thought it'd be good to acknowledge it and recognize kind of what she did from a historic level, especially after the way it came about this week. I think from an athletic standpoint, a mindset of players, I think it's good to discuss that. So let's get into it. About a week or so ago, they had a big game on the weekend. That weekend, nationally televised game. It was Fever versus Dream. The usual rivalry, and Atlanta had moments where they actually had control of the game, then lost control of the game, and then at the end, the Reese had a chance to kind of have the game-winning bucket underneath the hoop. I don't think it was as easy as people made it sound. It sounded like when you watch it a few times, but the fact is she missed the layup, and essentially it cost her team the win. I believe win the overtime. Indiana took over, won the game. She had a pretty abysmal game offensively. I mean, she missed layup after layup, so that was kind of the theme for the day. She was like 3 for 13, I believe. Really tough night. Defense is always there, but offensively was not there. And definitely, she spoke to the media. She said what she felt, how she felt about it. She said she let her team down. She even followed up saying she didn't get much sleep after that. And I think what I find interesting with her, and I want people to recognize this, right? Like, this is what we talk about when we talk about leadership. People that use a lot of phrases and leadership and stuff like that, and why certain players are winners and certain players aren't winners. And this is a good, example of why certain players are wired the way they are and why they always seem to be successful when they're on different teams and at different levels. She could have said, "Hey, you know what? This happened, that happened, all sorts of excuses. The refs did this to me and that." She didn't. She came out and said, "Yo, man, I blew it. It is what it is. It happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens." And I think it's always the case. I think we try to teach children these type of lessons. Is like, what do you do afterwards? How you take account of it, and how do you be better moving forward? So let's look into what happened moving forward. So it started off the week. She had a 3-game run with the Aces, Sparks, and Mercury West Coast trip. Started with, of course, the defending champions. The Aces had the dream number, this year as well as previous years. It's been a long time before Atlanta Dream had won a game against the Las Vegas Aces in any Atlanta Dream iteration. And so far this season, that had been the same. However, and that was like about 2 weeks ago when they got, in the second half, they got rocked in their own building from Las Vegas. So that even added more pressure for this game. Never mind the playoff standings. Anyways, Reese comes into that game playing, of course, Asia Wilson, defending MVP, defending DPOI, and she ends up putting up 21, 10, 4 assists, 4 steals, and shooting 6 for 13 in 39 minutes. And she was making life very difficult for Asia Wilson when she was guarding her. I said before, those 4 steals, I think at least 2 of them were in Asia. She made life difficult for Asia that day. And I think that's something that I think people are finally recognizing, because she is actually one of the better defensive players in the league. I've mentioned DPOI case online on X. I think that is something that people really should start looking at the advanced stats on her when it comes to that. She guards 1 to 5. A lot of people say they guard 1 to 5. She actually does guard 1 to 5, and she was fantastic in that game to get the dub. Next thing you know, we get the next game. Pretty much, um, whatever you want to call it, her Renoir, her her Picasso, whatever you want to call it. The Sparks game in LA. She's always played well in LA, and she sticks to the Sparks again. 20 and 10. 8 assists, 3 steals, a perfect 9 for 9 in 30 minutes. I mean, they just shellacked the Sparks. I think she and Jokic are only 2 players, I think, that had 2010 games with perfect field goal percentages in professional basketball, NBA, and WNBA history. So you're in good company when you're in the same company as Jokic. Crazy stuff. Once again, more history being made. We get now 2 nights later in Phoenix, in the desert. You're thinking, okay, it's coming through. The road trip's not done yet. And it's like, okay, maybe they might take a lapse after having that game. She might kind of fall back. Nope. She ends up getting a career high 31 points, 14 rebounds with 2 assists and 4 steals in 35 minutes. She shoots 14 for 21. She was like, she was all over the place, drop steps. She had little rolls to the basket. She's really reading the pick and roll really well with the guards. She knows when to slip it. She knows when to actually set it. It's not Stockton Malone yet. Was she in the guards with Atlanta? But boy, she's really starting to get a rhythm with, be it with Canada, be it if it's Gray or even Howard. She's starting to really figure out, and reading how the defense is playing that pick and roll and making the right read almost 99% of the time on that. So she's been fantastic. For the week, she averaged 24 points, 11.3 rebounds, and 4.7 assists. Fantastic numbers. I think she's definitely in consideration for an all WNBA slot. Where that will be, I'll let folks discuss. You can make an argument for first team. She might get second team. First team wise, I'm not sure it's positionless in the W or not, but let's assume it's not. You're dealing with two bigs in the front court. Obviously, Wilson's gonna have one of those spots. So the question is, who does she have that? Who gets that second spot in the first team? Is it Boston? Is it Reese? Is it who else would be in there? I think Neko would have dropped off at this point. Her numbers are still great, but not at this level at this point. Who else would be in the mix? Who else would be in the mix? Let's see who else we're missing here. Natasha Howard, possibly. I think I see her more of a second team if they make that argument. So, I feel like I'm missing one more big in this case that would be in consideration. Oh, Stewie. Yeah. So we'll see where it lands. But I think considering the numbers, and I think there's some advanced stats that have been floating around with her win shares and everything else, where they have a whole heap of stats where it's like she's like number one or number two in a lot of major advanced stats categories. So something to consider, something to watch for. The Dream have another game against the Sparks back in Los Angeles on Tuesday, and then they come back, and then I think they come back home. No, they finish off the trip, I think, or they finish off this spell before they go into the FIBA, the FIBA championships with Minnesota. So that's the game to watch to see how they do there. They split this year so far, so that's gonna be a fascinating watch to see how that's managed and how the Dreams stack up to Minnesota. Right now, just switching gears a bit to see where things are starting the standings right now. We're looking at a fight between 3, 4, and 5, in my opinion. Vegas, Atlanta, and Indiana. They seem to be jostling. Las Vegas seems to be able to keep just a slight step ahead of the other two. Indiana and Atlanta seem to be jockeying for 4 and 5. New York's making a late run and a late push. They got a big win over Indiana in Brooklyn on the weekend. That was pretty impressive. Now they're starting to get everyone back. Phoebich came back. Obviously, they had to work Inescu back into the lineup, and that was a bit of an adjustment period where they really had some struggles. But John Quell's playing great all season, as well as Stewie being Stewie. New York can be New York. I still feel they're a bit slow. I think they lack some athleticism compared to some of the other teams we're talking about, but they have that championship pedigree you got to respect. So it's going to be fun when these playoffs start. You're going to have a bit of a respite for a few weeks in September, and then we get right back for a sprint of about maybe 6 games or so to kind of wrap up before the postseason starts. But something to keep an eye on for when it comes to Reese. All WNBA consideration, and I really think she's moving into a position where she could be the front runner for DPOI. Watch that space. Don't be shocked when your boys told you beyond and told you when that news starts coming out, where those discussions start happening a month from now if things continue on this course. So I just want to leave it there. I thought it was something to acknowledge. I thought she's really a historic week from that standpoint for what Reese is doing and kind of growth of her game. Not just growth in this case on the court, but just watching how she's processing the game and also off the court and how her mindset is. She's always had that mindset, to be fair to her, as far as being a competitor and not being satisfied or having a real distaste when things don't go well. And you always want to see that bounce back from top athletes and top players. So I just want to acknowledge that, man. We'll see where things go from here when it comes to the Dream and the rest of the W. But you know where to find me as always, man. Like, comment, subscribe. right there down below. Share it as well too. You always find me on Facebook, on X, on Instagram, and on Blue Sky. As always, guys, be safe out there. Take care. We'll talk next time. Peace.